And
Boutte and Douglas, I think, deserve some love, right? Because we're gonna talk so much about Drake May here, but I'll get to Boutte because we've seen this from him, and it's good when you have those games. It's also good when you're not reliant on one guy. For a while, it was Hunter Henry was the only trusted receiver. Then he started leaning on Stephon Diggs, which is great because you want that. And then all of a sudden, DeMario Douglas catches like 7 touchdowns in a span of 2 minutes. But it was good to see him back. And I will say I misread that situation. I thought he was on the way out. I thought they were having a tough time connecting. But you saw, and Taylor, you've brought this up before, how much they go. Vrabel's gone overboard to praise him, the work that he's done, the blocking. Goes over to Hunter Henry. Hey, DeMario sprung you on that. We all saw that clip that the Patriots released here. So it's very clear that he's not in a doghouse by any means. And he is a guy who has been a weapon for them and a guy who can do great stuff with the ball in his hands after the catch. And then to see him kind of bust those 2 big plays, granted one of them was called back, really good to see him involved in this.
100%. In my 3 up, I have like veteran wide receivers, period, because I thought all of those guys made significant impact plays when they needed to. Some that counted, some that didn't. But I mean, if we want to start with DeMario Douglas, this is a guy who's been blocking his tail off the past few games and really in recent history. And that's kind of always been his MO. Like, he's always been a good blocker. He's just not really a guy who's put in those positions very often, but the effort I think has really shown, and it felt like he was close to having some kind of game like this or some game where they were going to try specifically to get him the ball because he has been working very hard. And I think you can see it on the tape. This is not a guy who's checked out. This is not someone who like quit on his team or anything like that. And I think our concerns were absolutely justified considering it was very weird that he went from someone who was so involved to someone who was almost a complete non-factor. And even, there was that really bad game he had with Drake May where it wasn't even all on him. Drake May shared some responsibility, but since then we haven't really seen much from him, of course, because you've had other guys who've carried the torch and really performed. But those routes where like DeMario Douglas is open deep, those were on tape earlier in the season. And other examples of, Drake may not feel comfortable, still trying to just do what he's supposed to do and maybe isn't really in that just game breaker kind of mentality. But DeMario Douglas, he's a 4-4 guy, which I think you really saw in the second should have been touchdown where he really pulled, or first or second, where he really pulls away from coverage where it's like, oh, is he going to get caught? No, once he gets the angle, he's completely gone. So he's got speed. He's got verticality. I just don't think it's something that's been exploited at other points in his career. So fantastic seeing DeMario Douglas do that and running really hard as well whenever he did have the ball. And then obviously we'll talk about Kayshon, but I want to know what Mike thinks as well about Pop's day.
Yeah, Pop was good. It's good to see him get back involved, obviously, considering, he's been sort of a guy that people wanted to, like you said, you mentioned his speed. He's somebody who, if you can get him the football, and we talked about Drake having an inability to get him the football for a multitude of reasons over the first couple weeks of the season, whether it's the fact that Pop's just a little bit smaller of a target, and sometimes it's hard to get those guys the football. And, it takes a Tom Brady to get the ball into Wes Welker's hands every third or fourth play, right? So that was a struggle. Their communication was a bit of a struggle. You saw communication issue today with Drake and Kyle Williams. So it could just be them continuing to try and get on the same page. But it was also the gunslinger mentality of Drake May that got the football to Pop Douglas, as we saw, because
wasn't that great to see?
Drake hasn't really done that too much until today. And it was like, okay, he's finally going back there and just letting it rip. And there were a lot of times, and I understand he wants to play safe and play conservative, and that's clearly been drilled in his head this season. We saw it from training camp, from going back to that, the second, third day where he threw like all checkdowns and just took what the defense gave him. And today, whether it was a game plan thing that they saw, okay, we can exploit this New Orleans secondary in this spot, and this spot, where, he drops back, he sees a guy wide open, he's like, I have the confidence, and essentially I'm allowed to put this ball out there and let my guy go catch a play. And Pop was a huge beneficiary of that. So it was awesome to see. Hopefully the momentum continues to grow between those guys and with Pop specifically on offense, because when he is involved in the game plan, when he can make a play, when he / Drake together aren't making mistakes, you see it today. He's a dynamic game-breaking player that can be a positive for an offense.
And I want to say really quickly on the touchdown to DeMario Douglas that actually did count. That is the play I've been waiting to see from Drake May literally since the day he was drafted. Like that, I think, is the most dangerous play that you have for Drake May. because it came on a half bootleg.
Yeah.
Where all these boots, we see that Drake, like he's a running threat. Most of the time, the conversions he has are with his legs. If you have to account for him going sideways where the field is usually cut in half, and the confusion that creates for the defense where they're thinking, oh, I'm flowing this way. Oh, this guy's running deep in a completely different direction. And then Drake to have the arm to hit those deep post routes. We saw last year, he tried with Kayshon Boutte. One of the biggest reasons I was discouraged with Kayshon's kind of long-term fit with Drake is because if you're going to be that X, you've got to be able to hit some of those routes, or you can get a coordinator like McDaniels who does a much better job putting guys in positions to succeed. And with a guy like Pop, like I mentioned, you've seen that before, but if you can hit that post route, which is very hard to defend and can just be automatic touchdowns, and be able to use the misdirection element that Drake May brings with his mobility, that's a nightmare. That's like if I'm a defense, I'm saying literally like the one time we think we're getting this play, quarters or whatever it is, whatever our best coverage is, we have to play that because he will shred us. I tweeted like that meant something to me. I cannot tell you how excited I was to finally see that play and for it to actually wind up in a touchdown was fantastic.